Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the final part of Basis Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It is appreciated. Now, we did some of the undercard on the previous video. 5 fights, 5 good quality bouts that I felt was worthy of consideration, worthy of talking. Now we have main events. And for this one, what I'm gonna do, because I know the one that everyone really wants to hear about, so as is customary, I'm gonna save that till last. But yeah, we're gonna start off with Emmanuel Navarrete versus Denis Berinchyk before we move on to Tyson Fury versus Oleksandr Usyk. So without further ado, let's get into the picks. So with Emmanuel Navarrete versus Denis Berinchyk, you've got Navarrete, who is basically trying to become a 4-weight world champion. He started his career at 122 pounds. He ended up actually beating Usyk Dogbe, taking his O for the WBO super bantamweight title, then parlayed that into being able to challenge for a vacant title at 126 after beating Dogbe again in the rematch. He ended up fighting for a vacant title at 126. Then he managed to parlay that into a vacant title at 130 at the same time as Shakur Stevenson moved up and obviously lost the belts on the scales. So as we've kind of seen, he seems to have followed Shakur all the way in that trajectory. Anytime Shakur Stevenson moves up, he kind of moves up straight after him. So interesting in that sense. But now, this being his 4th weight class, a lot of the advantages that he had previously are starting to become null and void. Height advantages, reach advantages, power advantages even. While he still does have considerable and fairly good power and powers of recovery, you're starting to see when he's getting in there with like bigger men as of late. The James Wilson fight particularly sticks in the mind. You can see that he's starting to sort of struggle, and even though his grit and determination is actually seeing him to victory for the majority of the time, he is starting to look a lot more human at these slightly higher weights. So that's definitely a point of contention to sort of look at when we're looking at sort of how Navarrete is moving up, and this definitely, to me, I think is as far as he can go in terms of the weight classes. I don't think he's built to move any higher than 135. But to be honest, if he can sustain and look good in this particular fight, there's no reason why he can't create another legacy and a nice little sort of career at that weight before finally deciding to hang it up. So that's a little bit on sort of Navarrete and his journey to how we get to this bout. On the other hand, you've got Denis Berinchyk, who is from the same amateur team as Oleksandr Usyk and Vasily Lomachenko, a few other Ukrainians that were, gold medalists or medalists of some sorts in those Olympic Games. Now, Denis Berinchyk is one of those guys who is very, very well known in like sort of the Ukraine. He's definitely like a star, a celeb over there. I believe he's done shows over there, such as their Dancing with the Stars and those kind of shows. He's definitely had that local celebrity, and for a lot of his time as actual pro boxer, he has sort of moonlighted with other activities outside of the ring. Hence why he probably hasn't been as active as a professional as he probably should have been. But he has been sort of in and around this space with the WBO especially for years. Everything from using the I think it was the WBO silver title, I think they had, or some kind of international trinket title, to even the EBU title that he sort of held, especially I think after that Yvonne Mendy fight which took place back in 2022. he's very much just been a person that has kind of almost just meandered around the weight classes, just waiting for this vacant world title shot to sort of come about, because he's been doing other things and he's not been fully dialed in to boxing as such. But with that being said, when it comes to his actual work inside the ring, he still, he trains diligently. He does take that part of the game seriously. So he's definitely not someone that you can ever count out or think that he's just resting on his laurels. While he hasn't been super active, when it is time to sort of get in the ring, he does, he does the work the same as the rest of that Ukrainian team seem to do, and he, takes it to his opponents. Now, with this particular bout, the way this is definitely going to be, it's going to be the aggressor, which is Emmanuel Navarrete, versus the, it would be like a bull and matador type situation. I think that's the easiest way to sort of describe it. You're going to get Berinchyk, who is basically trying to counterpunch, trying to slow down the work rate of Navarrete to be able to land his shots. Now, while he's not particularly heavy-handed, he's got enough power that people don't just walk through the shots that he does throw out there. So when you're kind of looking at how this fight does play out, it's definitely gonna be the onus on Navarrete to start fast and to try and catch Berinchyk early with something that just makes him reset and stick in their sort of a defensive countering position, as opposed to warming into the fight in the later round. He's another guy that will take a couple of rounds early on before he really starts getting to work, before he starts to sort of try and go through the gears a little bit and just do enough to sort of win those fights down the stretch. Now, he's currently 18-0, I believe, with a 9 KO, so 50% KO ratio, which will tell you he hasn't got the greatest of power, but again, he's got the pop to keep you honest. And in this fight, his natural advantage is the fact he is the much bigger guy compared to Navarrete. So there is every chance that his power could actually translate to a much higher percentage than what Navarrete is actually used to. So that's an interesting facet to kind of have a look at, in this fight. But when I look at how this fight plays out, I think because Navarrete, he's very action-packed. He will obviously throw punches from round 1 to round 12 or whenever the fight ends, and in that moment he's gonna be sort of pushing the action, pushing the pace, and be attempting to get his opposition out of there. Now, him throwing very wide, very unorthodox shots usually takes his opponents a few rounds, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 rounds to work out before they can sort of start trading back with him. But that has normally been the case when he's been at those lower weights. Now, the fact that he's in these higher weights, the opponents, they're almost not as interested in this unorthodox methods, these technically incorrect shots and how he throws them. A lot of them have been more willing to sort of ride those shots, feeling that they can take them because they've just got more weight than he has. I feel that that's going to play to Berinchyks' advantage, but it's also going to play to his disadvantage, because he's still going to just take his time and download and process and sort of just work diligently, rather than actually trying to work at pace to unsettle and unnerve Navarrete. So because of that, I feel that Denis Berinchyk is going to get himself overworked, get himself flustered at times in the fight, and essentially have to start chasing the fight from the later rounds. And because he's going to have to do that, I do think that Emmanuel Navarrete is going to be able to maintain his work rate from the first round up to maybe, I'd say, round 9 or 10, and then maybe tail off and have to sort of maybe hang on and just survive a little bit towards the end. But because of that, I do see Emmanuel Navarrete taking this fight. I see it being either a very close unanimous decision or a potential split decision, with maybe Berinchyk getting consideration exceptionally on one card, but just being beaten out on the other two due to primary work rate and and yeah, just work rate and combinations. So that's sort of my position on this one. I do think that Berinchyk is going to be the toughest fight for Navarrete, just due to the size and the Olympic pedigree and just the sort of the pedigree as a whole. But I think Navarrete's pro experience and his volume punching is going to be where this fight is won. But now, ladies and gentlemen, I know this is the one you've been waiting for. This is the one I've been waiting to deliver. Now, we've got Tyson Fury versus Oleksandr Usyk. Before I get into breakdowns, strengths and weaknesses of both guys, which I feel I will try and do in as much detail as I can without making this video run on too long, I just want to speak a little bit about the mentality and how their careers have gone thus far, both amateur and pro. So if we look at sort of Tyson Fury, you see he had about 33, I think, amateur fights, possibly no more than 40. I know that for a fact. But as an actual pro, you know, he's undefeated at this point in time. He's 34, I think it's 34 wins, no losses, 1 draw. So I think it's 35 fights in total. I'll double check that later on. But you've got that as his particular record. You see who he's been in the ring with. I mean, look, he's shared the ring with the Christian Hammer. He shared the ring with Vladimir Klitschko, Derek Chisora 3 times, Dillian White, Francis Ngannou. I guess we're going to add that one in there. Otto Wallin as well, and then a bunch of other people, nondescript. But the one person we will add into there is John McDermott, because that's a very important part of his journey. Throughout Tyson Fury's early part of his career, you would see that while he was never quote unquote body beautiful, he was always actually in shape in the ring. Very rarely looked fleshy, flabby. He, you know, always had a decent midsection around him, until you get to sort of like Christian Hammer and then Vladimir Klitschko. Then after that is when the, you know, supposed mental health stuff started to take place. He ballooned up in weight to over 400 pounds. Then dropped about 140 pounds off of his weight when he came back sort of 3 years later. A lot of people say it coincided with a suspension from UCAD, backdated suspension. But, you know, that's not the part we're looking at. What we're going to look at is basically from that period of time of the drink and the drugs, which he has admitted he was doing, up until this point where he's also admitted he still drinks, and I guess occasionally we've seen him out on the doing the interviews, doing the rounds where it looks like he's maybe on substances as well. I don't know how or if they test for those when they do the when they be doing the testing, but he's definitely been on substances. We can see that quite visibly. So you've got that on that side, ballooning up and down in weight, yo-yo dieting, ketos and all other stuff. You look at that and you say, all right, well, his natural talent is something that has got him to where he is right now. They say he's an anomaly. He's not the rule to the sort of to the, you know, he's the exception to the rule rather than the rule itself. Then you look at someone like Oleksandr Usyk, who for the most part we've never heard of have a, you know, a scandal or anything like that. We've never heard of him testing for any substances. Very, very long and decorated amateur career, won everything from the Europeans to the Worlds to the Olympics. Champions, gold medals, you know, galore. 350 amateur fights, 335 wins, 15 losses. You know, sort of one of the best amateur records out to date. There's only one that I really know that is leagues above that, and that's Vasily Lomachenko, 396 and 1 as an amateur. So yeah, in terms of those metrics, they had a very extensive career, amateur, also semi-pro, before actually joining the pro ranks in 2013, I believe it was. Now as a pro, he's 21-0 with 14 stoppages inside those 21 victories. So, you know, you can tell there's enough of a pop in those shots. The majority of his career was settled down in cruiserweight up until 16, His 16th fight was his last fight at cruiserweight, and that was against Tony Bellew. That was after he'd won the undisputed title. And yeah, they had his 16th fight against Tony Bellew. Then in his 17th fight was Chaz Witherspoon. 18th fight was Derek Chisora. Then Anthony Joshua twice, and then Daniel Dubois. So him going double undisputed in potentially 22 fights is an unprecedented feat. Something that hasn't been done, definitely not in the 4-belt era, and it wasn't even done in the 3-belt era with Evander Holyfield. I believe he didn't become undisputed, I think it was till his 25th or 26th fight as a pro. I'll have to double check that as well, but either way, we're looking at unprecedented territory with an additional belt. So he's got a lot to play for. Now, but again, before we get into sort of the breakdowns, I just want to speak about Tyson Fury, whether he is talented or whether he has had advantages over a lot of his opposition. One thing is that he is consistently inconsistent. He can have a magical moment, which, you know, and you say to yourself, how did I ever doubt you? How did I ever think that you couldn't pull this off? And then just looks majestic. Then you can also have a moment where you think, I can't believe people think that this guy is the best heavyweight in the world, on the planet right now. Like, he looks trash, he looks garbage, he looks basically like he's a perennial overachiever. And it's due to that inconsistency that it's very difficult to almost back against him sometimes, because you see how he puts in these horrid performances against these lower level opposition, but then somehow always manages to get it done against the quote unquote the better opposition. The issue with that is there hasn't been a lot of quote unquote better opposition if you want to go by people's narratives. You've got the best people that you would probably put on his record is Vladimir Klitschko, 100%. But then the asterisk to that one is, well, was Klitschko mentally switched on for this fight? He'd been champion for 10 years. Did he have any hunger left in him? Or, you know, did Fury catch him at the right time? I don't particularly subscribe to that in totality, but I can understand when people say that. You've got that. Then you've got potentially Deontay Wilder, who a lot of people put on there. You guys know I've never rated Deontay Wilder like that. Punch aside, what has he done? Who has he fought? To the point where you can really tell me that, yeah, that's who you hang your legacy on. Dillian Whyte. Now, Dillian Whyte, everyone knows, my favorite heavyweight. Always has been, you know, in this era. Especially, I was one of the few people supporting Dillian from that Joshua fight when the two of them were going at it. And, you know, for various reasons. But outside of that, that fight definitely came 2 years too late for Dillian Whyte. He was probably at his best between 2018 and 2019, when he had that run of like, I think he had sort of 5 really big, strong, solid fights back to back. And that was when obviously he deserved his shot at the WBC title. Wilder obviously made him wait. Then the title ended up going towards Tyson Fury. So by the time that Tyson Fury got to Dillian Whyte, Dillian was a shell of himself, wasn't in the right kind of shape or condition. No, I'm not going to say anything excuses, because I still picked Dillian to win the fight. So I give him that victory. But then you get the likes of Derek Chisora 3 times. You know that that's not a measuring stick to choose greatness by. Artur Valim was an unknown quantity to the masses. I knew who he was. I knew that he was a capable and a good professional heavyweight, but most other people didn't. He had the Tom Schwarzes, the Sefer Sefris, the Francisco Pianettas. More recently, you had that trilogy with Derek Chisora, which wasn't required. You had the Francis Ngannou quote-unquote sideshow, which should have never really happened. All of these, rather than taking the necessary tests that, you know, were going to prepare you for a fight like this. Now, part of that is me saying, I truly believe that the reason Tyson Fury took a lot of those fights is because he realized that he wasn't what he used to be, and the only way for him to, you know, make those big paydays was with recognizable names or in quote unquote sideshow missions. And that's how I've kind of looked at it. at this rate, I've said on several occasions, a lot of people will say Tyson Fury fights down to the level of his opposition, but I've maintained if you fight down to the level of your opposition enough, eventually you won't be able to raise your game when the real tests come, because you've got too many bad habits, you've created too many narratives in your head. Your muscle memory has changed because you're not engaged in that high level iron sharpens iron mentality. So ultimately, also, I guess maybe on a bit of a side note, when you look at this and you say, well, if Tyson Fury were to win, which a lot of people are pricking him to do so, what does that say about being a professional, being, you know, a high level athlete, you know, taking your craft seriously, taking your job, taking your professionalism seriously? Because in a way it sets a bad precedent, and it sets a bad look on people who think that, okay, well, hard work and dedication gets you where you want to go in life. Because if someone like Tyson Fury, who clearly doesn't always work hard and is definitely not dedicated, gets that victory, that may stop some of the future generations from looking at things and saying, oh well, I don't need to train hard or work hard, or I can eat what I want to eat and do what I want to do because look, Tyson Fury did it, Andy Ruiz did it. Remember when Andy Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua, a lot of people, you saw them ripping up their gym memberships because, okay, well, I don't need to be in the gym, I can be, you know, he made fat boys cool, as such. So there are a precedent, you could say. Sometimes it may be a bad look to have someone who isn't the best quote unquote representative of the sport leading the charge. However, talent is talent. So if you do believe that Tyson Fury is the most talented, then yes, it would be fair for him to win this fight. And he does have all of the natural physical advantages. He's got the size, he's got the height, and he's got the reach and the weight. So ultimately, those are four very big factors that Oleksandr Usyk has to deal with. Oleksandr Usyk, on the other hand, he has the speed advantage. He's definitely got the stamina advantage. I would say he's got the ring IQ advantage in this fight. And I think he's got the championship advantage as well. He's been in more championship bouts, like proper bouts. I'm not talking about his quote unquote lineal title defenses. Actual championship bouts at a high level, from both the amateurs and the pros to Tyson Fury. So in terms of being able to stay switched on, stay dialed in and concentrating, I believe he has all of those sort of mental advantages over Fury in this fight. Now, how do I think the fight plays out overall? Tyson Fury's biggest strength, as I said, his strengths are his advantages in terms of height and reach. So if he wants to stay more on his toes, stick upright, and keep, you know, Oleksandr Usyk at the end of his 86-inch reach, that's a lot to contend with for Oleksandr Usyk, who sports, I think, between 74 and 78. I believe it's a 78-inch reach. So in that sense, he's gonna have to constantly be moving to try and get inside that arm, especially if Tyson Fury tries to hold it out. Now the referee will probably warn him if he does that, because that is an illegal move to keep your arm extended. You are supposed to bring it back after your shots, but you know, if he holds it out there for a second and a half, which stops Usyk from being able to move, that's where Tyson Fury gets his advantages. If he can use it to the point where he can jostle Oleksandr Usyk to the inside, where he does like to sort of come in sometimes and flip his jab to the jaw, or sometimes to the stomach. If he can jostle him inside, he can maybe launch and load that right hand to sort of come in, while Usyk's having to position and lateral move into, you know, sort of away from where the jab is leading. So you've got that. You've also got his potential uppercut. Now Tyson Fury is very good at being able to post up at the side of a person's head, sometimes cut behind the head when he's looking to hold, or to possibly frame them up against the ropes. If he can do any of that towards Usyk and Usyk isn't able to get away from it, he can throw uppercuts on the inside. He can try and work to the body. He can try and throw the overhand off the top of the head, all the way up until the point where maybe the ref breaks them and possibly warns him for using the forearm. So that's a lot of the advantages that Tyson Fury has in this. The disadvantage is going to be that his legs are incredibly skinny. His balance is all over the place, especially these days. And if he tries to sort of just throw foot feints at Oleksandr Usyk, if Usyk pivots around him and he has to turn with Usyk, his turning circle isn't as sharp or isn't as lucid and vibrant as Usyk's is. And he's gonna, with having more weight on his body and, more height to have to navigate, that can end up taking away some of his balance and also his energy in that first half of the fight, which could potentially leave him a lot more sort of gassed towards the end. He doesn't throw very many punches. He knows how to control rounds. So if he's in a position where he's having to work hard from round one onwards, you're going to see that his gas tank will sort of capitulate and fail him to a degree. On Oleksandr Usyk's side now, you've got his advantages is going to be, as I said, the IQ, the speed, and the fact that he's constantly moving, and also the fact that he knows very sneaky tricks of being able to get inside on someone without being susceptible to getting clinched or getting held on the inside. He did it to Anthony Joshua many times in their fight. If you go back and look, there was times Joshua tried to frame him to the back of the head, tried to hold him. Usyk was able to slip and roll underneath it. Sometimes even a double hold from both hands, Usyk was still able to get out. There was times when Joshua wanted to sort of line up and throw a shot. Usyk would tuck up this way, dip down and push his shoulder in towards Joshua's body to create the clinch opportunity for him to be able to stop Anthony Joshua from extending his arms and getting leverage on the shots. He can do those similar type of things to Tyson Fury, and then be able to exit out before Fury is able to properly, sort of grab, lean and hold and push him back to the ropes. So plus throwing punches in bunches means that Tyson Fury is going to be in both defensive and offensive stances a lot more than he wants to be, which could end up obviously working his gas tank and draining that down as the rounds sort of progress. Now, the weaknesses for Oleksandr Usyk in this one, well, number one, we do know that there is a potential fragility to the lower extremities of Usyk's body, like just where his navel, where his pelvis is, there's clearly some sort of fragility there. So body shots is going to be a key thing to have to worry and concern himself with. Also having to be able to break the distance with Tyson Fury means that he's going to leave himself open to potentially getting countered, having to get past that reach. And obviously if he does end up in those clinches, while he is a fairly strong guy, if he does get caught in there soon enough, there will be ways for Tyson Fury to dirty box, get rough and sort of negate a lot of Usyk's advantages at that moment. So that's a little bit about the sort of the strengths and weaknesses of both guys. Ultimately, this is how I see the fight playing out. So you're gonna have I think the first few rounds are gonna be cagey to a degree. Tyson Fury is going to come out trying to establish his dominance in the center of the ring. You're going to get Oleksandr Usyk trying to circle, trying to find his entries. He's going to be looking for that jab. He's going to be trying to find out, okay, what's the quickest way I can get to the target? Is it from the outside? If I touch his arm and then I step to the outside, how is he going to move? If I step on the inside, is he going to throw something to potentially try and keep me out of that space? So there's going to be a lot of guessing on that side. You're going to get Tyson Fury trying to feint Usyk with his feet initially, and if Usyk bites on those feints, then Tyson Fury's got him where he wants him. He gets to slow down the pace. But I don't think Usyk is gonna be worried about Tyson Fury's feints in this fight, especially in those first few rounds. I think he is going to look to impose his game plan and make it clear to the judges early on that he is the one winning the rounds. He's the quicker of the two. He's landing the more telling shots. He's landing the clean body shots. He's landing the jab. He's managing to break the distance, with Tyson Fury not really being able to hang with him in those first couple of rounds. I think when we get to round 3, 4 and 5, I think this is going to be a moment where Tyson Fury now decides to switch up tactics, and rather than trying to employ feints, I think he's actually going to try to walk. He's going to try and walk Usyk down. He's going to try and walk him down either next to sort of a double jab, either from that southpaw or that right hand orthodox stance. I think he'll stay orthodox for the majority of this fight, to be totally honest. That keeps him at his best possible distance against Usyk, because if he goes to that southpaw and his southpaw v southpaw, Usyk's got an easier target to get his jab centrally towards Tyson Fury. Whereas if he has to break the guard from that left hand, the orthodox stance, it's a lot more difficult with the reach advantage. So that's how I think the first few rounds are going to go. I think Tyson Fury is going to employ more of a walking him down type of maneuvers from sort of round 4 onwards. I think he's going to try and go into a high guard. He's going to try and push out that double jab. He's going to try and throw many shots. I think he's going to be trying to aim, dip down and get around the side of Usyk's body. I think he's going to be trying to, just work the ribs, work the lower half. I think he's going to even try and potentially get rough to the point where he gets warned by the referee for dirty tactics. Usyk will probably start complaining and tapping his guard to the referee to suggest, look, these shots are, they're straying low, like tell him to keep them up. But I don't think Tyson Fury is going to be worried about getting points off. I don't think he's going to be worried about warnings. I think he's going to do everything in his power to basically break Oleksandr Usyk down and stop this from being a quote-unquote fair fight. I think his only way after those first rounds and being sort of dominated in those first rounds in terms of just a boxing IQ is for him to go for the gusto and basically just take the fight to him and be as dirty as he can be without getting himself disqualified. Rounds 6, 7, 8, 9 I think is where this fight takes a turn. I think in this moment Oleksandr Usyk is going to have to make a decision about what does he want. Does he want to fight the rest of this fight with honor, or does he want to basically go to Fury's level and try and fight fire with fire rather than fighting fire with water? And at this point is when I think that he's going to come into a moment where he almost has to pray for forgiveness for trying to basically match Tyson Fury in his endeavors. I think he would have taken a bit of a break in some of those earlier rounds. I think he's going to try and step on the gas, especially from sort of round 7 and 8 onwards. I feel like he's going to make sure that in those particular rounds he makes it clear that he's back on top in this fight. I think there's potential that he might even throw a couple of low shots or questionable shots just to make Fury know that we're both here, we both want this just as bad as each other. I think he may get warned by the referee as well, but I then think that those combinations, when this time Fury would have been working so hard, I feel like his engine would be starting to go to E, and he's having to manage those rounds now. He's having to sort of manage his reserves. And at this point is when Usyk is going to up the work rate. And I do believe that he's just going to start peppering the body. He's going to be aiming, he's going to be digging hard body shots in, not just tapping and trying to sort of just to score and just unsettle. I think he's actually going to start planting his feet and sort of holding his feet for a couple of those shots to make Tyson try to dip under, roll, or to protect it so that he can catch him up top to the head with maybe left and right hooks. And I think that's going to continue for 2 to 3 rounds, with Tyson Fury maybe having some moments in between where he's able to break the distance, get on the inside, potentially rough, and again both of them get split up by the referee, bit of admonishments here and there. But ultimately I do see potentially, I think maybe in rounds 9, rounds 10, I can see Tyson Fury maybe hitting the canvas. He could potentially hit the canvas earlier than this, but I could see him hitting the canvas in around those rounds, coming through that. But then round 11, I see round 11 being a pivotal round where Oleksandr Usyk manages to unload a big salvo on Tyson Fury after he's now sort of tired, worn out, barely hanging on, barely surviving. And with the referee that they've got, Mark Nelson, who likes to jump into fights early rather than letting them see how they sort of play out, I could see a potential where Tyson Fury is getting lit up shot after shot and Nelson decides to jump in and he waves the fight off. So my prediction is Oleksandr Usyk to win this fight via 11th round stoppage. The eye could also open up at any point in this scenario as well, but I think just due to sheer exhaustion and just sheer willpower from Oleksandr Usyk, and potentially an early or a questionable jumping in by the referee, I see Oleksandr Usyk winning this. So that's my prediction. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it's been a very long video. I wanted to do this one extra special, extra long, extra detailed, give my own flavors and inputs in it. But yeah, Oleksandr Usyk via 11th round stoppage is the pick. Leave yours down below. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you very much for watching. But for right now, that's Basis Picks locked.